Let's make this thing happen. Corey, welcome to the show.
Well, thanks for having me, Ross.
Yeah, I'm stoked we're making this happen. I mean, we really had to align schedules for this. You literally, just got back to Columbus?
Like 20 minutes ago.
Yeah, just in time for this. Yeah.
6-hour drive, all good. Woke up bright and early and happy to be here, man.
We were also talking about it's been years since we have seen each other, hung out, anything, right?
Yeah, and I was just thinking about this as I was driving in because I've now lived out of Columbus in Nashville for a little over 3 years. And I was just thinking, like, it feels like it's been so much longer than that. Like, I feel like I've jumped into, like, this time capsule that was, like, a whole nother lifetime. Like, feels like it's been a decade. But it's been a long time, but it really hasn't been that long.
It's funny.
It's weird to think about.
Yeah, well, I was going to ask you, like, how Nashville is in general. But, like, you saying 3 years, if you would have told me you moved there, like, a year and a half ago, I would have been, like, accurate. Yeah. Like, it's been 3 years?
It has. It feels like it's been so much shorter and so much longer
all
at the same time.
Yeah.
Because just so much happens. I feel like as you grow up, as life changes, your responsibilities change, your relationships change, like, things weirdly speed up but also slow down.
Yeah.
And it's just it's a ride, man.
Yeah. Well, how has Nashville life been for the last 3 years? Like,
it's been amazing.
Yeah.
It was something that always, like, deep down I had wanted to make the move and live there. Just for the experience of being around like-minded people who are all pushing towards the same goal. But I feel like there was always a hesitancy to do it, just because it's really hard to uproot yourself when you live somewhere that you love with, you're close to your family, which I am here in Columbus, not so much in Nashville, but, to uproot everything and move across the country a little bit, or at least across the region it's tough when you've never done that before.
Yeah.
But just kind of one of those things where after the whole pandemic hit, it was like, if you're ever going to do this, you're going to do it now. Mm-hmm. And I'm thankful enough that my fiance at the time, now wife, was willing to move with me, and the band was willing to make the shift to being headquartered in Nashville, from being here since our genesis, basically. But it's been amazing. There's so much culture, so much just drive down there. Everybody wants to network. Everybody's motivated to meet other creatives, and there's just, like, an energy to that city that I've really enjoyed being a part of.
Yeah. And so the band, did everybody in the band move down there too?
We've still got one straggler.
Okay.
So our guitarist Robbie still lives maybe 10 minutes from where we're sitting right now.
Gotcha.
But he's on either a plane or driving down, like, almost basically once a month at this point.
Okay.
Just to keep up with things, and it's been really solid for us. Just a lot of traveling, but, like, we wouldn't want to do it with anybody else. So it's like, why not?
Yeah. I mean, that's also really dope that everybody did stick together and was like, hey, you know what? Like, one, I'm either going to travel so we can keep doing this band thing, or, hey, the rest of us, you know what? We'll go too. Like, I feel like it's a pretty big deal. I don't feel like there's a lot of cases where something like that would happen.
Totally.
Really,
Totally. And I think, like, I think one of the things that helps is we have been doing this thing so long now together. It's now been probably 7 years, a little over 7 years of us being in a band in some form together. And we've been through a lot of just life together, not so much even just music. Like, we've been through a ton on the music side, the creative side, but, like, just life together, like being in each other's weddings and going through graduations and moves and all kinds of personal things together. Like, I think we've kind of crossed the point of, letting small hurdles, or, even sometimes big hurdles, like, get to us in a way where we're like, we don't want to do this together anymore. Mm-hmm. Which I think just, like, shows to me that, like, I'm lucky to have a good group of friends and humans first that happen to want to make music together, and it's awesome.
Yeah. And so, you guys have been a band for around 7 years then?
Yes. Yeah. So obviously started as 90s kids for the first 6 of that, and have since switched, and kind of shifted gears a little bit. But yeah, these guys that we've been playing music together in some form since, like, junior year of college for all of us, which is crazy.
So I definitely want to dive back into just, like, the story of, like, the formation of the band in general, everything you guys have evolved through, changed through, all that sort of stuff, even you personally. But I do, up front, just want to dig into Southcourt stuff.
Yeah.
So, like, walk me through even, and I know we're jumping, I'm saying, like, hey, we're going to time travel back and get the story, but I want to start at the now. Walk me through the transition of 90s Kids at Southcourt, because I've also, like, again, we haven't seen each other in years. We haven't gotten to sit down and talk about any of this or catch up in general.
Yeah.
So someone on the outside who has seen you guys, do the rebrand and all this sort of stuff, like, I've just kind of collected the bits and pieces of what you guys have shared, but I also feel like you've, at least, I feel like I've mostly seen it from you. I'm sure the other guys have, but you've also shared kind of the personal change of even your outlook on music itself and what you wanted a project to be. I've seen bits and pieces of that, but I'd love to kind of dig into all of that. So walk me through in the last year, but couple years maybe, like, what made that transition from what you guys were doing with 90s Kids to now reforming and kind of evolving into Southcourt?
It's a really loaded question, and there was a lot of emotional high and low with it. But weirdly, it kind of started from, I think, an emotional low point for us, in that we had been pouring everything into 90s Kids for so long, and I think all of us would stand up and, raise our right hand and say we're absolutely so proud and so grateful for everything that happened with that project. And everything we were able to do, but obviously I mentioned change a lot, like change in life, life things happening. And over that time, I think it changes who you are as a person. It changes it a little bit. It changes your why a little bit. And as we kind of made the transition down to Nashville, we started really pouring everything into the thing and trying to do it the right way with, all kinds of industry people surrounding us and things like that. It started to feel a little bit like we were punching a time card or doing things in a very, we felt like a machine. And it got to a point where, you'd throw the music out, you'd put the content out around the music, and you're so proud of it. But then every time you don't see that number tick up, or you don't see that big thing happen, or that big email come in, or that big opportunity come in, it's like you're giving away some emotional capital, or it's like eroding away at you. And that's not to say that we stopped it because it wasn't doing those things. We stopped it because that's what we were thinking about more than the actual creative part of it. It's like our why was always about the music, always about the creativity, and always about, like, we need to stop writing for the numbers and the now and the what we think is going to be, what we think is going to be big right now, and start writing for ourselves in 20, 30 years, where we can look back on these songs and be like, man, I'm still proud of that. That is timeless to me. And that the feeling of the music overcomes the viral potential of it, right? And I think as soon as we realized that's the route we wanted to go, I think we realized that it couldn't sustain itself under the 90s Kids name. Because what we want to do, I think if you look at it from a 10,000-foot lens, it's not that different, right? It's still the alt indie pop space, maybe jumble those words around a little bit, and you've got Southcourt, but there's something about this that this is not developed on, intellect or anything like that. The songs are all developed on instinct. Everything that we're doing now is instinct, creativity, and it's all based on making ourselves proud, our future selves proud, and just being in a place where we can write the stuff we feel and not worry about how big it's going to get. And I think that's been the most fulfilling thing about it, is putting the creativity first again, rather than the machine or the industry or whatever you want to call it. Yeah. And so the last year and really 2 years of building this thing has been the most gratifying, to restart. It's scary, but very gratifying. Yeah.
So, and I mean, you did sort of just answer this question, but I do want to dive even more into it. Like, have you felt like after that transition, after that almost release of the pressure of we have to do it for the industry, we have to do it, if we don't, get signed and become big, then it's not worth it. Has it felt just way better having released those pressures from making this music?
Yes. And I think it's because you can separate the making of the music and the making of the art, the creativity from how it performs. And you can just focus on, realistically, like, none of us in this band are making music because, solely because we think it can make us money or get us famous. We're making music because we love making music, and we love doing it together, and we love getting on stage as a group of 4 guys and pouring our hearts out with the stuff that we wrote. And that has to be the why for everything. As soon as we see ourselves start falling back into that, well, what's going to work and what's going to hit and what's all that, like, we have to look back in the mirror and say, like, step back. That's not why we're doing this, right? And so I think that's been a really good, like, kind of virtue to just remember that that's, like, this is why we do it, because we love it. And if it's not because you love it, then you're doing it for the wrong reasons, in my opinion.
Yeah. And honestly, like, that entire thought process was such a big thing that I was excited to talk to you about, because, again, I've seen even just tiny bits and pieces shared online of that's why, the rebrand, the evolution, whatever you want to call it, happened. And I am such a, like, vast supporter of that mindset when it comes to creative endeavors, and even to an extent, certain business endeavors.
Totally.
Like, yes, if you're putting business into it, well then, hey, we need to be successful and we need to make money. But also at that core of it, what's the intention behind it and what's the why? Yeah. If you really, really, truly have a why of, I want to do this because, or this is what I want people to feel or to hear or to experience or to connect with, whatever it is, I feel like that why is the most important part. And I feel like anybody sharing kind of a version of the story that you're sharing, I feel like that is super important to hear, because there's, I do 100 different creative things. And yes, I want all of them to be successful in some way. I want people to see or hear the stuff. But more so, I'm doing them all because I just want to do it.
Right.
And that why is why I like storytelling. I like connecting with people. I just like making stuff. And I'm trying to design a life where I never have to deny myself the ability to make and express myself through whatever art form I want. And I feel like anytime anybody can tap into that, I'm like, more of this. Like, this is what people need to hear, is like, it's super easy to get caught up in the machine, especially nowadays with social media and the way that we're, everything's portrayed. But, like, when you can uncover that true intention of why you want to do something, I feel like, it's not a perfect track record. There's going to be days where we're all going to get caught up and like, I wish that performed a little bit better.
Totally.
But overall, if you have the consistency of, I'm doing this because I enjoy it and it brings me joy and I'm being fulfilled, that, at least for me personally, and I'd love to hear your thoughts, personal thoughts on it, is like, that for me has been the biggest unlock through anything I do, is once I tapped into, does this bring me actual joy and fulfillment? Do I feel good about making it? And I don't care what version of someone else's success this does or does not approach or reach, I'm good with it.
Yeah, and it has to be. And I think what you just said, because as I was talking about my why and that it's always about the why, I'm just thinking about, I'm sitting here with somebody who also has the same why. And that's very important. I think whether it's you are writing with someone or recording a song with someone or sharing the stage with another artist or, anything you might want to say in the music industry, or, we're making a podcast together, it's, you can feel when the other person loves what they're doing versus I'm doing this to punch the box, punch my lottery ticket for virality because I think this is the right formula at the right time to get me somewhere. You can tell when somebody's just genuinely excited about what they do. And I think that just feeds, and that's, to me, like, what creativity is all about. Like, there's this Rick Rubin book, The Creative Act, that I think there's a lot of folks probably, I don't know if you've seen it or read it or anything like that. A lot of folks in the music industry have it on their coffee tables. I'm guilty of having it there and only having read half of it, but it's full of these like anecdotes about like creative energy flowing through people. And I'm not necessarily like that kind of guy at heart, but I do believe that like energy and care and passion begets like energy and care and passion. Mm-hmm. And that's where the best stuff comes from, is when people truly care and love what they're doing, rather than I know I'm good at this and so I have to do it like just because it's like this might end up getting big, so let's do it this way because that's how other people have gotten big. It's like, I don't know, we're not on this earth long enough to be thinking that way, in my opinion. So.
Yeah. Do you remember like what and maybe there were multiple, I don't know. What were the like identifiers during the time frame for you guys, or again, you individually, of like when you really started to notice like, man, like I sure do love making this music, but it does kind of feel like we're just really getting caught up in the machine. Like, was there anything that kind of stuck out to you as like moments or identifiers? You were like, wait a second, like hold on, like I'm getting way too caught up in this. Like I need to change something.
I think there were a couple things, and again, I'm going to caveat this with like I still stand by everything that we had done
for sure.
In that project, but it felt like the runway was running out, or the real estate was running out in terms of how long can we take this before it truly starts to get like recycled and ingenuine and just like following the trends rather than like we want to blaze our own trail and say screw it to everything else. It's like I think there were times when I'd be, writing a song or producing a song and just being like, no, it has to be under 3 minutes. Or, oh, you know what? I really think that's a cool line that we just came up with, but I don't think the listener will understand it, or I don't think it will catch the listener as much as if we do some, really specific, earwormy, modern, like timely thing. And when my brain started to go that way, and I started to like gravitate towards those things, like in the moment it feels really good, but then, I mentioned timelessness earlier. Then I look back on some of that stuff, even a month, 2 months, 3 months down the road, like, and I cringe at it a little bit, and I'm like, man, I should have just gone with the instinct. Like, It's like that was the indicator when it's like, I don't want to look back at this stuff and feel like I left anything on the table just because I felt like that was the best move for what the masses would like. I think it's very important to speak to the masses, to have an audience, to have a target, and to be good at marketing what you do. But I think if that is the why behind your endeavor, like, I don't know, I guess I should just go into marketing then, right? Like, and I'm not great at that. So the why is music, and when it becomes like, well, we're just making the music so it can market well, it's like, no, we're making the music to make the music. And those were the indicators when my brain started to gravitate to those more markety things than just like, I just think this is cool and I want to put it down and show my friends. So.
Well, I mean, obviously, we had done bits and pieces of work together over the years.
Yeah.
But as a listener of your guys' music, like, I'll also say that, like, I don't feel like I've ever heard a bad song come from that group of guys.
Thank you.
Personally.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
I feel like everything, whether it was the weird phase or you look back and like, I don't know, like, but I'm still stoked on it. Like, again, as an outsider to the songs, like, I never heard a bad song. Like, on any EP that you dropped, any single, anything like that, I always was like, yep, another good one. Like, this is really, really solid. And I feel like that's continued into Southcourt, like, tenfold for sure.
Well, thanks, man. That means a lot.
Yeah. And I also am curious, though, of like digging into that and figuring out, like, balancing that, I guess the balancing act of, okay, are we writing songs that'll catch on, the chorus will catch on TikTok and then everyone will listen to it, or, hey, we really like this song and all this sort of stuff. Again, as an outsider, I'm like, hey, all the songs sound super dope and super rad, super catchy, all in their own ways. And this is a very broad question, but like, when you're looking at the experience of a musician in modern day, I feel like we could sit here for the next 2 hours and make a pros and cons list and dig into all the things on both sides, right? I know what it's like as a creator in general in modern day of trying to start ideas, and again, the balance that we're talking about of not getting caught up in what you think is going to catch and doing what you actually want to do. But like, how would you describe the modern day experience of a musician? Like, do you feel like it's and I'm not saying like, let's make it doom and gloom, but like, do you feel like it's a constant uphill battle of like, we have more options now, more now than ever, to actually get our creations into, in front of people, but at the same time, so does everybody else. So you feel like you're constantly, it's like an uphill battle that's like fun and worth it, but also you really got to keep yourself in check, like we've been talking about, of remembering your why, remembering the intentions. So again, there's 100 different ways that I could explain it, 100 different ways we could take it, but how would you describe it?
I think you really hit the nail on the head, and the fact that, like, back in the day, right? And, you know, even early 2000s, as far as the early 2000s, like there was this glass ceiling of getting noticed, and as soon as that happened, right, the snowball starts rolling down the hill, and it's too fast, right, to you know, but there is that glass ceiling you have to break through. You got to know somebody's got to be at your show, somebody's got to hear what you've written and champion it, right, who has connections. Whereas now, you know, I could go sit in my car right after this and do a selfie video and say, like, if you've ever been broken up with, this song's for you, and lip sync to a demo of my song, and it could theoretically get 15 million views and change my life. Mm-hmm. But that being said, that's the same thing for every Jimmy and Joe on this planet can do that. So it's leveled the playing field in an interesting way. I think from a musician's perspective, like the angle I would take this question is, I'm very fortunate in Nashville to get a lot of perspectives on this, and I think the people that I resonate with the most are the people that, like, they're a little bit exhausted by that, and just the sense that it's like only because that's what you they feel like that's what you have to do. And it goes back to my point of, like, if we're not doing this because we love it, then why are we doing it? And so I think I've met a number of people that have fallen out of love with music, but have started to find their way back into it by just going back to, well, why did I love music when I was a kid, right? What did I love about music when I was a kid? It wasn't finding somebody on TikTok. It wasn't finding somebody on Instagram. It wasn't some viral thing. It was like, I heard this song, you know, on a CD that I bought, or so somebody made me a mixed CD and I listened to the whole thing, and it's amazing. Like, it made me feel something from listening to it start to finish. So I think watching other people go through this, and everybody has their own journey too, but falling in and out of love with music, and usually the onus of falling out of love with music is because of this social media online pressure to, like, this comes first before the music. And you fall back into love with it when you're just like, I spent too much time spinning my wheels on something that was, you know, a symptom and not the root cause, right? Or something like that. I don't know if that's the best way to word it, but it's like watching people fall back in love with music. It's always because they always fall out of love with it because it's because of something other than music, right? And it's like, or because they feel like they're making music for the wrong reasons. And the experience of being a musician, I think, for anybody who didn't post their first song and go viral and get signed and is now on a world tour, which is 99.999% of us, is you're going to go through cycles where you don't want to write. You're going to go through cycles where you don't want to open your computer to produce. You're going to go through cycles where you don't want to make any creative content or anything around your songs. But you have to find a way to rediscover your love for music. It's always about the music first. And if you can remind yourself that, and you can find a way to fall back in love with it, that, to me, you come back stronger every single time. Mm-hmm. I fall in and out of love with music once a month, mm-hmm. but it's for fewer and farther between stretches now, right? Like, I'll just have a day where I'm like, man, this sucks. I don't want to do this. Like, I'd rather just go sit down and play video games or something. But you do that, and it's just, you know, you want to find a way to reignite that spark again, and it's always got to be about the music first. I just rambled for a long time.
No, it was a great ramble, and I agree with all that. There's at least a day or two every single month where I'm like, why do I make all this stuff that I make? Yeah. I don't ever want to have a filmmaking project again. I don't want to build this brand. Like, why? I just want to sit and watch TV and get back into playing video games and just do that. Like, yeah. I have that thought all the time. But then I can never actually stay away from any of the stuff that and right. Taking a break is fine. Like, we'll obviously reiterate that. Like, take the breaks, like, battle the burnout if you're feeling it. Like, it's totally fine. I definitely used to be that person who was like, I never wanted to take a break. I never wanted to rest. And then at some point you figure out, oh, wait, rest is productive. Yes. Like, that cliche is very, very true. Allowing yourself the space and time away from the thing that you love doesn't mean that you don't love it. It means you're actually gearing yourself back up to give the proper amount of energy to it.
It's a recharge.
Yeah. Now, something else that I've seen you share is you've shared a little bit about the balance of, like, your day job and making music. That is something I feel like is also vastly important to be talked about. And I guess I don't know if I have a specific question, but I would love to just kind of dive into that of how do you balance that? Where is your state of mind when it comes to all of that? Because like, I often talk to people where like that's for some a really, really harsh battle where they almost feel like if I have a day job, that means none of this is real and that I can't accept it as like even looking at something as a hobby feels wrong, or just because you have a job means this is a hobby. It's like, no, this can be the career and this is the job, and both of those things can have their own separate energies and all this sort of stuff. I would love just your perspective, because I've seen you share at least a little bit about that. And maybe I'm wrong and I'm getting that mixed. Like you have talked about that, right? Yeah. So walk me through that. Like where are you at with that balance now? How did you get to that balance?
Is a little light French allowed on this podcast?
Hey, absolutely.
Okay. Anybody? So I've now been doing the job and music thing for I think having a full-time job plus music for 7-8 years now. And anybody who tells you that your art is worth less or that you can't go as far as you want to go while having a full-time job, like they're feeding you bullshit. And it might just be because it's non-traditional. It might just be because it's like, oh, well, you can't have a plan B. It's like nowadays, I think the pathway to becoming self-sustaining with music is somehow, in ways it's more attainable than ever because of the social media virality of it. But like you said, because of the volume of it, it's harder than ever. You have to find ways to sustain yourself while building this business. Really, music is a business in a way. You're building up this living, breathing business of your creativity and your art. You have to find a way to sustain yourself and sustain that financially. So if you want to have a full-time job and come home and do music, or vice versa, right? I do music in the mornings and I bartend at night. Say that. Like I'm kind of more the former, right? Like I work 8 to 5 every single day. Shut my laptop and go down to my other laptop and start making songs. And the one thing I will say is I'm not the best at handling it. I have really, really bad days with it. I have days where it's really hard to switch from one side of my brain to the other, where I'm working in like spreadsheets with data or on really tough, harsh calls, like difficult situations happening all day. And then to get off of that and become creative and open and flowing, it's really hard. And sometimes your brain is just blocked up. And sometimes you don't feel like opening up your laptop and starting to produce after you've been stressed all day. But the way that I've started to try to look at it, because I used to complain about it. There's a lot of people in Nashville that find ways to not have a full-time job and they're able to do the music, whether they do side jobs or have other ways to make money. And everybody hustles, right? I often envy that, and I used to envy it even more. But the way that I'm looking at it now is having this job it's an asset, right? It allows you the ability to afford the things you need to do with music, whether it's making sure that your gear is up to date and kept pristine, whether it's, hiring a photographer, videographer for a show, being able to travel, creating and printing merch. Anything under the sun now requires money. And to be able to fund it, it's something that I don't take for granted. Although I definitely do think time is currency as well, so it's really hard. But what I've learned is to your point, rest being productive. I used to go down and when I moved down to Nashville, I used to do 5 sessions a week after 5 work days a week. So I'm working 14-hour days essentially every day, just between the music and the full-time job. That's unsustainable, right? I do have a wife. I try to have a life outside of it, and I think it's just really important to veg out and relax sometimes and recharge. So it's this really delicate balance of trying to go as hard as you can while not biting off more than your body or your brain can chew. Yeah. So it's hard and it's a grind, but if anybody says it's not the right thing to do or you need to give it up, like, it's bullshit.
Yeah. And man, I literally love so much of what you just shared there. And I appreciate the transparency too, because I feel like, especially nowadays when it's super cliche for everyone and their mom to have a podcast and share advice on it, right? I feel like it's such an easy thing to be on a podcast and anyone to sit and be like, yeah, you know, if you're not hustling every day and you're not doing it, like, take no excuses and do this. And it's like, man, there's so many times that anyone, and myself included, hears that stuff, even from a show that I enjoy. I'm like, I get what you're trying to say, but I don't necessarily think that's the realistic, like, viewpoint anymore. And I think that after there was a handful of years where maybe that hustle and grind culture was, like, accepted, but then I think everyone kind of got through it fast and was no, wait, I don't want to work all the time, and I'm not a failure if I have this supporting this, or if I'm not turning my hustle into a business overnight just because I opened up an Etsy store and posted one thing. Like, and so I think it's like, it's so somewhat overdone, and it would be easy for anyone to sit on a show and be like, yeah, just put in the work and put in the hours and blah, 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 blah. And it's like, again, I get what you're saying at the root of it. But actually digging into, here's the reality. Here's the balance that at least works for me. Here's why it's okay to have this be the focus or take time off or whatever. Like, and that's even why I asked that question, because like that was another thing that I wanted to dig into with you, is I'm like, okay, this is somebody who is just openly sharing their journey of like, I've got a day job and I've also got this passion music career over here that I'm of course putting as much energy into it as I can. And hey, I'm doing both. And highlighting those imperfections also.
Oh yeah,
because it's not one or the other. It's not you're all in your career and you never have to think about a job again. And if you do, you're a loser. And it's not if you're ever, it's you have to work on the job and you'll never have time for that. Like, everything's that balance, that harmony in the middle.
Right. And I think the hardest part is it's weirdly also hard to maintain the it's hard to maintain the image or the even the perception on, like, the side that we're talking about, what you don't hear, right? Mm-hmm. Like, I talk a lot about how it is as a musician to balance having a job, but actually in my day-to-day career, like, balancing that perception of also being a musician, like, there's been lots of times I've been on projects where, like, coworkers or clients or whatever have like found out about it or whatever, and I've weirdly kind of over the years kept it somewhat closer to the vest, or if I get to know you, I'll tell you if I work with you, whatever. And then I think I've started to notice that, like, you'll tell somebody at work, like, oh yeah, my band's playing a show this weekend or whatever. They're like, oh, you're in a band? Like, yeah. And I get that, right? There's a lot of that, but I think it's kind of satisfying when they actually go out of their way to look it up and see it, and they're like, oh, like, he's really, really doing it. And I think that's the thing that I could get better at too, and I'm trying to get better at, is not so much just like tucking that behind myself at work every day and just being like, if they find out, being like, oh yeah, I'm kind of in a band. It's like, no, like, yeah, this is what I do outside of work. And I'm proud of it. And letting yourself feel proud of it from both sides of the equation, like bringing your whole self to both sides of your life. That's something that I'm trying to get a lot better at. And I think it's important. I think I respect the people in my career and my day job who have passions outside of work, just as I respect the hell out of anybody who I'm writing with or creating with or doing anything with musically that has to pay the bills in some other way with music, because it's like we're all doing these things.
Yep. Now, I want to dig into, something you mentioned earlier of like how music pops up for anybody, when you get first introduced and all that sort of stuff. Let's jump in the time machine. Let's go back. When does music like become your thing? Is it early on? Is it later in teenage years? Like, tell me the story.
I think so. I was definitely a product of like the LimeWire age of music and all that. And I think like I just wanted to be doing whatever my brothers were doing. I have two older brothers who are 8 and 10 years older than me. So I was significantly younger, but I'd see them downloading music off LimeWire or whatever. And I think one of them introduced me to Blink-182 very early when I was like 6 or 7. And I was like, ooh, this feels like wrong. I shouldn't be listening to this, but it's cool. It's punk. It's edgy. Like, and so I really latched onto that side of things, but it wasn't until I was probably 8 years old. I remember I would come home from school every single day. I'd get home probably about 30 to 45 minutes before my mom and dad would. So I'd pop down, and there was this TV channel. It was like in the 100s. So it was like, you had to have like some cable package that had it, but it was MTV, but it was called MTV Hits. And they would only play music videos all day. It was like their outlet of like, oh yeah, we used to do this, but now we're gonna siphon it off to like our sister channel, whatever. But I popped it on, and I think I was watching it. I think it was an All American Rejects or a Good Charlotte video or something like that. And I just gravitated towards like, man, like I want to have a guitar in my hand and doing those things. And I'd always felt like, I don't know, I'd always hear like a melody in my head. I would always, all these things. But then when I saw somebody doing it, like creatively pouring their heart out, like just on my TV screen, and I would watch these videos every single day, but it started with those. And, for that point, I just kept asking my parents, like, can I have a guitar for my birthday? Can I have a guitar for my birthday? And, so my mom finally got me one. I think I was 9. And I was super grateful about it. And she took me to a student of hers. She's a teacher, but she took me to a student of hers house that he was like, yeah, like I'll help you, I'll help you learn the basics. So she paid him to give me one lesson, and he just taught me what a power chord was, and he taught me how to play American Idiot by Green Day. And he was like, you can take those power chords and do all kinds of different things with them, but like, use your ear, use your instinct, use these basics and go. And from there, I just like kind of started teaching myself, and I was like, this is the most fun thing ever. But like, I was never satisfied with just like playing covers or whatever. Like I was always like, I kind of want to make my own stuff. I feel like that's what I loved about watching those videos, is watching watching these dudes on MTV. Like they made that, and they created something that didn't exist before, and they made me feel something that I had never felt before. And that's what I want to do for myself and for other people. And so from then on, it was always writing first. It was always creating first before learning other people's songs, things like that. And that's where I think like that creative drive came from. And music specifically was just like, I can see myself in that living room sitting on the floor right now watching an All American Rejects video. I'm 9-10 years old and just like envisioning myself up there, and it's crazy. Like, yeah. So how young were you when you dove into like trying to write your own songs? Like, I think I was writing basically from the moment I got that guitar.
Really?
Or at least trying to, poorly. Yeah. But like I always had like, I don't know why, I had like kind of an innate sense of just like meter and timing and cadence and stuff. It was probably from listening to so much like Blink-182, who's so like simple yet effective, yet like they just have this sensibility to the way that they write that it kind of pervaded through like everything. And as my musical taste grew, like I always kept that basic foundation of like simplicity and effectiveness in my head. But yeah, I was really just starting to write from the moment that I think I picked up an instrument, because that was always my why, is like creating. And so that's just kind of like, it all snowballed from there.
Do you feel like that in that moment, in that time frame, like did that become like the goal and the dream? Was that the oh my God, I found, okay, this is how I use my why in this form of creation. Now I gotta be in a band one day. Like, did that just become the mission?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And it was a very, like, it's a long journey of like trying to make sure like that I felt confident enough to do that and to start a band. Like I was writing songs and doing things just in my basement by myself for long before I was ever in a room with anybody who wanted to play music with me or even hear me out. Like, I don't know, I was a little reserved, had a lot of like self-confidence issues and things like that. That still, I think still like persist at times. And it's just like in my nature a little bit, but like, I think I just remember like being asked to jam one time, and asked to jam by a friend, Walker Atkinson, who lives here in Columbus, who we still are homies and stuff. But it was like me and him and another guy, and we were playing, and they're like, okay, but who's gonna sing? And I was just kind of like, I guess I can just do it for this practice or just for this song, just to like see how it sounds. But we got to get a singer, right? And so, yeah, we'll get a singer eventually. But like, and I just started singing, and we never got another singer. So it's kind of just like, it was out of necessity. But I think those moments like pushed me to try the next thing. Like, okay, I tried singing in front of people and I didn't die. I'm okay. And it was fun and it was fulfilling. So now I'm going to try to record that. And through years and years of trying to make that sound not like crap, it finally gets there. But it like each milestone like kind of helped push me over the threshold to like try the next thing and try the next thing, to the point where like I still think that happens to me today. It's like you put yourself out there, you get a couple bumps and bruises, but it helps you kind of get the confidence to jump to the next thing. And now, like, I don't know, if you ever would have told me that I would be like self-producing my own and other people's songs, like that would go out and be heard on Spotify by thousands, or what it's in some cases like millions of people, it's like, holy crap, you tell 9-year-old me that, and I'm like, what could I ever want other than that, right? Yeah, so you guys got to think about that, and I always try to put that in perspective.
Yeah, you also kind of answered my next question too, because my next thing was going to be like, when did you begin to sing all the time? But that was sort of, you said it was via necessity of just like, well, I mean, we need somebody to sing, I'll just do it, and then you just kept doing it.
Nobody else was going to do it.
Yeah.
I mean, I still think I'd be way better at like just being a backup singer, right? Like,
really,
I do. I think I think that like I could sing some harmonies and play some rhythm guitar and be just fine. But like, the other thing that I've like come to grips with finally is just like, yeah, but there's still some stuff I feel like I want to say with my voice too. So, why not? Like I said, we don't have enough time on this planet to like be hiding behind things or, waiting, right? Like just give it what you got and enjoy it. And that's what I'm trying to do.
Yeah. Now you said this is still, and everybody always has an off and on battle with self-confidence, but you did mention that was like one of the kind of things. Is there, when it comes to self-confidence, something big you feel like you've personally unlocked or learned from yourself, of whether it's just like, hey, you just got to go sometimes and jump off the cliff and just see what happens, or like anything come to mind when it comes to self-confidence for you as a big unlock?
Yeah. I think just for me, the most important thing is just jump off the cliff, get hurt, and come out the other side and see what happens. Because every single time that you put yourself out there, whether or not it's successful, it's going to teach you something, and it's going to make the next time you do that thing just a little bit easier. And so I've tried, so many things and all, and I think what I've realized through all those like bumps and bruises and scrapes and like, oh man, I put that song out and I look back and I hate the way my vocals sound. Like I'm so embarrassed by it. But like you come out the other side, a little bit more ready for the next thing, and you learn to appreciate the imperfections. Like nobody's perfect. I know that's like super cliche, but like you are your own brand of imperfection, and like just being you is more important than being perfect, because you can only be perfect at being yourself. And so that's the thing I try to say when like, oh, I'm trying to hit this note in this song, like in this recording, and I don't like the way my voice sounds in that note or whatever. And it's just like, yeah, but like if it's right and it feels right, you just got to do it. Because if you're hiding from those things, you're kind of taken away from yourself. Like you owe yourself, like just put yourself out there, because in reality, like, I don't know, I have this tattoo on my arm, and I can't pull up my sleeve because it's long sleeve, but it says Try Hard on it. It's one of my favorite albums from a band called the band Camino. Try Hard, and I tattooed on it myself, not just because I love the album, but because they put the message out there, and the message really resonated with me, that it's like, when people call you a tryhard, because they're like, oh, he sucks at singing, but he tries really hard, he's such a tryhard, like that's a compliment. Like you should not take that as oh man, he's a tryhard and he sucks. It's like, yeah, whatever, maybe they meant it out of jest or out of whatever, but it's like, to me, it's like, that's validating, because they're like, nah, like all any of us can do is give something our all, right? And like being called a tryhard, being called whatever, like even with those self-confidence issues I have, like that motivates me. And so that's like why I have that tattoo. It's why even if I'm not confident with something, I will try anything once, because it's like, it's how you improve. It's how you get better.
Yeah. I love that you bring up the try hard thing, because there's something so fresh in my mind that I just saw. I mean, legit, probably yesterday at the time of us recording this. I don't know if you're familiar with the artist Jensen McRae or not.
Yeah.
Incredible.
She's so good.
She just dropped a new album.
That Massachusetts
right now.
song.
Yeah.
Oh, she did? Okay,
She,
cool.
like literally, again, at the time of us recording this today.
I got to check that out.
I'm halfway through it. It's incredible. But she was on another podcast, and a clip got shared of her talking about Taylor Swift. Now, regardless of anybody's opinions on Taylor Swift, I know she's huge, and it's easy to be hateful or love her or whatever. But she talked about how everyone tries to say that Taylor tries too hard. And people use the term, she's a tryhard. And Jensen's point of view on it, she was like, exactly what you just said. She's like, what's so bad about being a tryhard? Like, why? She's like, people use that to somebody like Taylor Swift as a way to be like, oh, she tries too hard to make her music too good, and she tries too hard to present herself as some way, and she's a tryhard. And Jensen was like, why is it a bad thing to care so much and to be labeled as a tryhard? Like, that's not, she's like, I'm trying to do that. I try to model myself after what Taylor Swift is doing, because I don't care if somebody looks at me as a tryhard or not, because it means I care about my thing. I'm taking it serious in the way that it needs to be taken seriously for me. And so you saying all that tryhard explanation, I'm like, man, that's fresh in my mind right now of like, I fully agree. Yeah, cool. Label somebody a tryhard. That's cool. Whatever. They're trying their best to show up in the way that they want and make or share their creation as best to their abilities. What's the issue with being a tryhard?
And like, when have you ever seen somebody reach amazing heights or blaze new trails by being lazy or casual or just, cool and collected about everything and just, I'm not going to try too hard? It's like, no, like whatever medium it is, whether it's like Taylor Swift or like LeBron James or whomever it might be, like they worked their butts off to get there. And you have to put yourself out there. Like, and I think that like, being called a tryhard is like, sure, it's an insult to a lot of people, and that's why they say it. But it's like, if anybody ever calls you that, take it as validation, because even if you're trying hard, like in the wrong, like the quote unquote wrong way or whatever, like there is no wrong way. Give it your all, like no matter what your all amounts to, because that's the mark that you're going to leave on the world.
I would also say that if someone's calling you a tryhard, hey, that means they're seeing the work you're putting in, so you win. Like, you win. Oh, you're seeing all the stuff I'm doing and that I'm trying to do. Thank you. I appreciate that. Like, I'm glad you saw it. Hope you checked it out.
Thanks for the views, man.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, so you discover that you can sing. You finally get to jam with some people. When is it years later? Is it high school, after? When do you actually get to form a band? When does the band thing go from I'm jamming with some friends, we're hanging out in someone's garage or basement or wherever, I'm dipping my toes and trying to write my own songs? Like, when's your first band form?
It was pretty much that same situation that I was like, we're jamming, and then it's like, okay, somebody needs to sing, and it's like, okay, well, you sang and you did it and it didn't sound that bad, so like, should we go play this somewhere? And from that point, like, we were writing songs and trying to do the thing. It was never not serious in my brain from that point on. Now, doing the thing, like, we definitely weren't doing it the right way. We didn't know how to do it, but everybody has to find their way. There's no book on this stuff.
Yeah.
And even especially back then, like now you can look up all kinds of resources to help you, like what do you need to start this project, whatever. But even now, like there's no book on how to do it the right way. But over different formations of like different groups through, I would say high school is where it really like started to heat up of just like, no, I can do like, we can do this. We can record this stuff. We can go to a studio. We can like actually record this stuff and it doesn't sound half bad, and release it and put it on the internet and make CDs and stuff like that, and play gigs. And to that point, like that's when like the how to be in a band started to click. And then, we persisted in that band like through part of college until, I ended up like kind of stepping back and restarting with some new people that I had met in college that became 90s kids. But it's like each stepping stone there, like you start knowing absolutely nothing and you make every single mistake, but then every single mistake becomes like a lesson or a reminder in the back of your head, so that the next time, the next song I release or the next like the next album we create or the next show we play or the next tour we do, like, we're not going to make that mistake the next time. It's like, so it was never not serious, but I think it was always different iterations of bands and different levels of maturity up through the point where I think 90s kids, like, we really started to do it professionally, or like at least have some modicum of an idea eventually of how to do it professionally.
Yeah. Now, did you go to college for anything music related?
I did not.
Okay.
I went for business. I went for it's like a mix of like business and technology, which is like what my day job is now. I'm in data consulting, but I was always, every bit of free time that I had in college, like it was making music, right? In my room, dorm room or crappy college house room, whatever. Like it was always the thing, right? Like in college and the career and everything, as much as I love having the opportunities that I do there, but like always a means to an end to be able to have the ability to do what I really love.
Yeah. Now, you kind of mentioned this when you guys officially formed 90s Kids. Again, as an outsider, as a listener, a viewer of you guys, like even from the start, like I feel like there was like a clearer set intention maybe with 90s Kids, where like you said, like, hey, we try and we learn and we try and we learn, and like, all right, now we're doing this 90s Kids thing, and while you're probably just taking everything that you learned from the other projects and putting them into this, am I off base by saying it felt like there was a more centered intention with like how you guys were forming, marketing, branding 90s Kids as a whole? Yeah,
I think so, and I think it was like a product of lessons learned, and also like the way that I've always tried to look at it is like those that you look up. It's not just the mistakes that you make, but those that you look up to, other bands that we were seeing that we loved what they were doing, that were sort of in our space or like in our atmosphere, at least like we had access to them, we played shows with them, whatever it may be, like learning from them how they did it, like internalizing that and saying, how can we make our version of that without, true imitation, like plus the mistakes and the missteps and also the positive lessons you learn. Like 90s Kids was, I think, the first time when it synergized to the point where it's like, okay, we have the maturity, we have the drive, and we have a little bit more resources to be able to take this information that we've learned over the years and build something real out of it. And that's where that intention came from. I think that's when, like, the moment when it clicked, when it's like, it's not just making music and throwing it into the ether and like hoping your friends will buy CDs, like all that stuff. Like there is a right way to like build a brand and build an image and start to try to pull people into this world that you're building. And, even at the time, it's like, it was definitely more intention, but it was still like, if I was restarting that band today, I would do 100,000 things differently.
Right.
That being said, it was the first time I think that like we weren't completely blind, or I wasn't completely blind in what I was doing.
Yeah. Well, because that's, again, like watching you guys develop the band, like it felt like you took the marketing of it seriously, you took the brand identity of it seriously, you wanted things to fit, a certain like look and feel and sound and all this sort of stuff, and watching that evolve too. Like, am I super off base to say that like I feel like the song High School, which we shot a music video for,
still love that video,
genuinely a blast of a like so much crazy stuff went into that was like stressful on both parties to get together, but like I still love that we had choreography in that.
I can't believe it exists. It's awesome.
Yeah, that's still one of those things that like even like Josh and I will reference often of like, man, how did we pull that off at that point in time? Like there's, in watching the video, there's definitely things that I'm like, I wish we did this, wish we did that. Like you've been saying with the song, this entire time. Like, yeah, I look back and I wish I did these things differently. But like, yeah, just the way we pulled off like the one shots and all the choreography and everything like that, I'm just like, yeah, that's a fun video. But from a sound perspective of 90s Kids, like I feel like, at least again, outside point of view, I feel like that was like an evolution point and a growth point of 90s Kids, where like I remember you texting me that song and saying, hey, we kind of want to shoot a music video for this, we're really trying to kick it into gear. And the moment I heard that song, I was like, yep, this sounds different, like this sounds like a growth. Would you pinpoint that to maybe like a new kind of intentional growth or evolution of 90s kids at that point in time? Or
I do, and it's interesting that you say that, and like you really hit the nail on the head, because like I think we were definitely like still from music, like everything was off instinct. We hadn't really ever written with like professional writers before that point, anything like that. Like that song, we actually was like our first trip down to Nashville with a close friend of ours who had moved down there a little bit before that. He was like, come on down and write with us. And we wrote that with him. And it was the first time that it like unlocked this where lyrics and production can meet and tell the same story and really feed off of each other in a sensible way that make you not only like feel the lyrics, what they mean, what they feel like, and have them be pretty tight and well like conceptualized, but also that the song feels like the lyrics. Like it's the song is a world. It's not just, and I'm not saying any of our songs before that like we're less proud of or anything like that, but it's like that moment was very much like, oh, there is a lot more to this like songwriting thing than just like, starting like a loop and singing over it and like just seeing what rhymes. Like there's a lot more to this. And I think like that song, High School, was like a very pivotal moment in us like transitioning towards like becoming like better writers and just like crafters of songs.
Yeah.
And so that's interesting you call that out, because I do look at that, and 2019 I think was the year we wrote that. It was like a very pivotal year for us, I think. And I still look back on it like really fondly.
Yeah. So over those next couple of years, I know we obviously kind of touched on this at the beginning of the conversation of like, eventually we get to like the transition of, into Southcourt, and also kind of identifying like, okay, it's time to just like make this change. But like when it comes to those handful of years that you guys were 90s kids, this is such a general question, I'm sorry, but like you've done great at telling all the stories and filling in the gaps thus far. What were those few years like? Like, obviously, I know we're learning a lot, we're trying a lot, but also, we have mentioned those like moments of burnout, or those moments of like kind of getting caught up in the machine a little bit. And as a listener of the music, I'm like, oh man, like all the songs you guys put out are still in playlist rotations of mine to this day. Like they absolutely are.
Thanks.
And so I can look at all that and be like, man, I just feel like everything song-wise, you guys were killing it. And especially as like a branding and creative direction person, like I always loved your guys' visual identity that you put with everything. I feel like it was always on point. But kind of walk me through maybe even the ups and the downs of those few years of 90s kids. Because, and obviously, like we don't have to go into details, but I feel like I vaguely remember at one point in time, like you guys were like starting to work with like management, or there was like a label talk or something. And then I feel like that changed. Like, yeah. I guess just kind of walk me through the story of 90s kids specifically. Yeah. And then we'll get to like the Southcourt.
Yeah. Look back on it so positively, because it's like if I were to pick, if today was my last day on the planet and I were to pick like a defining thing that I gave the world, like 90s kids would be right up there, if not the best thing that I feel like individually that I've been a part of. Like, and just, there are people that would come to shows that like literally had tattoos or had made like custom merch or wanted us to sign stuff, or just like, hey, this song did this for me personally, and like it sticks with me, and it's like the craziest thing ever. But like as you said, there's so many ups and downs. Like I always try to remember those things as like even if it did it on a small scale, like it made a mark on some people very profoundly. And like the fact that that's not just me and my close friends is the coolest thing ever. But like getting into it a little bit, I feel like we had a lot of moments where something would almost happen. Whether it's a label getting on the phone, like a big agency getting on the phone, a tour almost happening. And we did get to do some touring, like really great touring, and we worked with really great management and stuff like that, and great booking. But like every time that like the next level thing happens, it's like you get to the doorstep, they open the door a little bit, and right when you're about to walk through, it's like the door closes. And that definitely, I think, overall was probably the biggest hardship, was so many almosts. And I think it weighed on us just like as people, because each time that would happen, I think that like we would start to think like, oh, like what are we doing wrong? Like what are we not doing that these people need to see to be able to help us get to the next level? But I think that the way that we got out of that was just saying like, you got to stay the course, because the instant gratification path is true for almost nobody. Like Rome wasn't built in a day. Like the biggest bands out there weren't like, they weren't selling out massive tours and getting huge support slots like after 1-2 years of being a band and just like getting lucky and knowing the right person. They did it by building it themselves. And they did it by staying true to who they were. And I think that each time those things happen, like while they still hurt, like things have happened even like with Southcourt, that's like almost, right? But it's like I think that whole era taught us to just like find your identity and stay true to it, regardless of what, stones people are going to throw at you or what curveballs life is going to throw at you. Because if you don't do that, you're going to drive yourself crazy, and you're going to feel like you're never doing anything right. And it's like, there is no right. Just do what you love and do it because you love it, and people will gravitate towards it. And if they don't, great. It's something you can be proud of. Something that helped you get your creative essence out. But like, luckily enough for us, it's like, I look back at like, it was such a big almost in so many ways, but like, no, like we did that. Like, it's cool to look back and be like, we did that. We did get to play that music festival. We did go on 3 tours. Like we did like get a feature on Billboard. Like it's crazy. Like, again, like you tell 9-year-old me that and he would be like, great. When do we start? Like, I can't wait. So that the ups and downs all amounted, I think, to that. And every almost, like, it just becomes like a feather in the cap now. It's just like, when the right thing comes along, it'll come along. And when it clicks, it'll click. Maybe that's not today, but it wasn't meant to be. And so I think that is all defined in, like, just on a personal side, like, man, the way that brought us all closer in so many ways, like, those dudes they're brothers to me. And it's because of all of the, like, good and the bad and the almost, like, all of that stuff, going through that with those dudes and, like, fighting like brothers, but also, like, caring for each other like brothers. Like, that is why we can keep doing this in this new form, because we've just built that bond and that brotherhood. And that's, like, ultimately, like, the impact that we made on people, as I referenced earlier, is something I will never take for granted. But then also the relationship that kind of flourished, like, with my guys, like, that's literally, like, I'm so thankful for it. And that's what I think defines those years, at least for me.
Yeah. That is literally a perfect segue into the next thing I wanted to ask you. Was like, we've touched on it. Obviously, you just talked about it. We talked about it a little bit earlier. But, like, I want to, like, let's talk about, like, that camaraderie with the guys. Like, again, like, I mean, there's always a push and pull. There's always ups and downs. Like you said, you fight like brothers and you care for each other like brothers. But, like, I mean, especially in bands, I feel like it's easy to churn out members like every other week, and things are changing and you're breaking up and all this sort of stuff. But, like, what is that, like, building that type of camaraderie over the last, like, 7+ years with the guys been like?
It's always been, it is like a brotherhood in that, like, one day we will be, like, so in sync and, like, oh yeah, everything's like, we got to do it this way. We got to, like, this is the right thing. We're all on the same page. And then the next day, like, somebody will have an idea and everybody's like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. You're an idiot. But that person's so hard-headed about it. And it's usually me. Like, I'm pretty like steadfast and hard-headed, and, like, you know, I can definitely be stubborn with, like, my ideologies, like, when it comes to just, like, creatively, right? And the fact that they put up with me, I think, is hilarious. But that, like, all that being said, I think it has led to this, like, really great understanding of each other. And we were just talking about this the other day. I feel like there's no situation in which somebody in the band, like now with all we've been through, like would ever bring an idea or a thought or be really impassioned about something without coming from the right place in their head, without truly believing like this is best for us as people, this is best for us as a band. And I think that comes from like, yes, it comes from creating together. It comes from like building these worlds, putting ourselves out there together, but it also comes from like thousands of miles sitting in a sweaty van together. And it comes from like going out and watching, like we love watching like football games, and we love watching dumb movies together, and we love like going out to the bars and having some beers like at like crappy dive bars like together. And it's just like that goes back to college. It's like these like human experiences that we've had of just like we are forced, and not forced, but like at times like being in a van, like you're forced to spend this time with these people, so like you better learn to like it. It's like we definitely like rubbed elbows and all kinds of stuff, but like those experiences, just like I feel like I know those guys like each like the back of my hand now, and they probably all know me like the backs of their hands, and that just makes it so much like easier to be in sync, to like even when I'm so mad at something somebody said because they disagree with me and I had this cool idea, it's like got to think about the fact that's like they're coming from a place that they truly believe is right, so let's hear each other out, right? And I think we've finally gotten past that. Like took a few years probably, because like, you know, when you're younger you can get petty and you can get underhanded and stuff, but we've gotten past like our fights don't get like petty anymore. They don't get childish. They're just like they're more productive and constructive, I would say. And so that's like the brotherhood has truly like transcended like kind of just like being close buddies that like to do the same stuff and make music. It's like we get each other.
Yeah. And the reason I feel like that's so important, whether it's a band, whether it's a team, anything like that, I feel like the act of creation can be a very lonely and isolating world.
Yeah.
So when you find camaraderie like that, when you find people that like, and no one agrees on everything 100% of the time, everyone's going to have an idea, even if you're working with each other, at some point you're going to disagree on an idea and you're going to be like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. And they're like, no, it's not. And it's like, well, what do we do? You know, let's just move on.
Yeah.
Because like, again, no one's 100% perfect at all times. No one's going to agree at all times. But still finding that like at the root, like a genuine, like you said, brotherhood, that camaraderie, being able to still like just build a strong friendship, again, in the world of creation and art. Like I talk to a lot of people often, like of course everybody has friends, but not everybody has the time, space, and energy spent and shared with those friends. And there's a lot of people that I talk to that are like, man, like I only see a friend on a set, or I only see a friend at a show, and I'm not the most intentional with like trying to spend time with people. And it's because when you're on a creative journey, like obviously a band can be a little bit different. You got to have other people with you most of the time, but like it's so easy to become isolated on that journey. And so when you find those people, like, you know, for me, I'm lucky that like Josh and I have been friends for a decade plus at this point, and like we don't see eye to eye on everything. There's definitely ideas that he or I present to each other and we're like, I don't think that's it whatsoever.
Yeah.
But we still work together on the next project. We're still doing the next thing. We don't think the same. We don't have to act the same or live life the exact same way to still have that brotherhood built, to still have that camaraderie built. And in fact, that's a whole other conversation about relationships in general, is like you're going to be different. And oftentimes those differences are going to be the things that kind of fill in each other's gaps and balance it all out.
Totally.
Like, yeah, we shouldn't be the exact same. Like, no, then we're just existing in this little bubble of yes all the time. You know, it's like, no, we need to have some like different perspectives along with our shared perspectives of how we do things, how we approach things. And so in general, like that's even why I asked that question of just like, yes, it's a band. But again, I know plenty of bands that like break up a year in, just never get along. And because I also think it's easy in any creative endeavor for a false sense of camaraderie to be built out of the fact that you and someone else want the same thing, but you don't know your way of getting it is different.
Yeah.
And I say that from experience where like I've tried to do creative things with certain friends and they say, oh my God, yes, that's such a cool idea. And I'm like, it is a cool idea. Oh my God, let's do it. You want it? You're down? Hell yeah. That must mean you want it as bad as I do. and you want it the same way that I do, right? Because you said yes, so let's go. And then you get into it, and then you start to figure out, oh, wait, this isn't necessarily, okay, your form of working on this thing is different than mine, or mine is different than yours. Good. It's not that either are good or bad, right or wrong. It's just different. And again, that's just human relationships. Obviously, you don't know unless you're doing it. But like, that can be tricky sometimes, of like, you find that other person or those other people who are hyped on the thing, and you're all like, we all want this. It's real easy to get into the middle of that and be like, we all wanted like this idea of this, but oh, okay, my version of wanting this and yours are pretty far off, and maybe there is no fixing this one. Maybe this should just be, we should separate. We tried, it's not going to work. Like, I feel like it's so easy to fall into that.
And that's so real in so many ways. Like I've also been a big, like, at least big into like the writing community down in Nashville for other people as well. And there are so many people that, like, I respect what they do. I love their music. And we sit down in a room to write together, and we're so excited. We both want to write a great song, and it just doesn't work. And neither of us are wrong.
Right.
And neither of us are right. It's just different. Like, we aren't the right partners in that moment. And that's okay, right? Like, you have to experiment a little bit. You have to find your right frequency, like with the people you work with best, in the avenue you work with best, like whatever that may be. And it takes some trial and error, and like just being okay with having a different outlook on getting there from other people without being like, you're wrong and that's bad. Like, no, it's just like, I'm not the right person to support that vibe, and you're probably not the right person to support the vibe I'm going for. But we can still like support each other from an outside perspective, and we can still be friends without like broaching that like creative like collaboration together, and that's cool.
Yeah.
That's chill.
It doesn't have to be some like 100% perfect blend of synchronicity of like, well, we said we each wanted to do this thing and it's got to fit perfectly. It's like you said, sometimes you just find out like both of our versions of wanting it are not right or wrong. It's just, we tried it, it's not working. Hey, that doesn't mean that I now despise you and hate you and think you're wrong about everything.
Yeah.
It's just like, oh, this iteration of what we tried to do, it doesn't work. But
it usually makes me respect the person more, because I'm just, especially when it's just like, man, like, I don't get what they're doing, but they really get it. And they know their brand and they know what they're going for. I'm just not the right fit to help see it through. But man, like, I really respect when people know what they want, and when they know how they feel like they've got a plan, they've got a path, they've got a vision. And like, even though I can't necessarily be the most effective part of that vision, like, I'll be in the front row. Like, you know what I mean?
Yep.
And that it adds a layer of, like, when you can learn to like let that build respect and build like understanding, rather than just like, oh, it didn't work out, we can't transactionally help each other, so like, what's the point? Like, it's not what it's about, you know?
So, two-part question, kind of. When you're looking ahead at just anything that's to come in the next handful of years, next handful of months, whatever it is, for both you individually and the future of Southcourt, what are the plans? What are the goals? What are the ideas, like hopes, like bucket list items, whatever it is? Like, what do you want to see the trajectory become?
It's a big question. I think the most important thing is being able to bring this music to the world in a way that is authentically us. A lot of times, like I said in the past, we've fallen into traps of like, you know, do the TikTok trend where you sit in a car and sing your song, or selfie video or whatever, or like do these like hooky things. And it's like, that works for so many people. It doesn't really work for us. And so as we continue on this creative journey, where I think we're unlocking so much in like the realm of songwriting and production, and just like the world we're building around our song, like, or around our music, I should say. The most important thing to us is like, how do we find the best way to bring that to life in a way that is authentically us, and something that we feel like we can put our names on and look back on in 10 years and be super pumped about. And I think like the way that we've tried to go about that is, it starts with the music, right? Like, and we're going to continue to do that. Like, write what we feel, not what we feel like people want from us or people want in the industry. Write what we feel, create what we feel, and build the world that we want to live in. And then do our thing live, right? Like we want to I think that we are never as connected as we are as a group of guys, like as that 30 minutes or an hour or whatever our set length is that we're on stage playing those songs together. Like there's just this like energy and this like, I don't know, this camaraderie, whatever you want to call it, that we have, that I think live, it's like nothing I've ever felt. And we want to write music and create things that feed that feed the like, man, this would sound cool on a stage. And so for us, like, do we want to be the biggest band in the world? Like, absolutely, dude. Like, we do. But the most important thing is like not losing ourselves while we do it, trying to fulfill ourselves from an inner perspective first, and then letting that translate to hopefully outer success. But inner fulfillment, like self-fulfillment and creative growth, right? Like the music that we're making 3 years from now is probably going to sound evolved from the music that we're making right now. And that's important, right? We don't want to write the same thing over and over again. We never have. So continuing to grow in every sense of that word, like I think is super important for us.
Yeah.
And that's what Southcourt is.
I'm going to toss you a cliche question, but I still want to ask it because I'm curious.
Yeah.
At this point in time, looking back at the discography of both bands or anything you've done, what's your favorite song that you guys have written so far, and why?
That's really loaded. There's different ones for different reasons. Mm-hmm. I would say that for Southcourt, it's probably, I still look back at, there's a lot that's not out right now that would be in contention, but as far as what's out, Southcourt, the first song that we released is called Peripheral, and it's some of the simpler lyrics that we've ever written, but it was the song that I think we really found who we were when writing it, and that is like, we were demoing all kinds of stuff, throwing stuff at the wall, but when we came up with Peripheral and we wrote that, we put it down and listened back to it, like that moment was like when Southcourt was officially born. And that song is just, it's a product of writing for a feeling and an emotion first, and writing from authenticity rather than trying to pen the perfectly built like lyrical masterpiece song. Like it's like, we think the lyrics are great, we're stoked about them, but it came from instinct rather than like that place of intellect, like or perceived intellect, like I had said before. So that one was I think a really, like that's always gonna be a favorite from like the Southcourt stuff. But then like I look back at just like songwriting perspective, and there's a 90s Kids song called Fitness Account that we put out, is probably in like 2021 or 2022. But it was actually written after one of those almosts where it's like, man, like this, I don't remember if it was a label or whatever at this time that was like on the doorstep, and it just fell right out of our lap. And I was like super bummed about it, and like went into the studio just by myself in 30 minutes and just like grabbed a guitar. And I usually like write songs in a little bit more of a structured way, but I was like, I'm just gonna sit down and write because I'm pretty like bummed right now. And this song was all about just like letting that fear get to you of like, maybe I should get a hobby, maybe I should just like grow up, get a job, like kill the dream and just like start a fitness account, whatever I need to do to like channel my creative energy into just something more mundane, just get with the program. And that song, like while it kind of is like a depressing, like, oh, maybe I should just give up song, I always look back on it so fondly because it's like, we talked about artists falling in and out of love with music, and it's always typically for something that's like not because of the music. It's an opportunity that they missed or a video that didn't go viral or something like that. It's like that song can be like a flag that you plant and look back at, and you're just like, I don't want to feel that way again. Like that's not what it's all about. You always are going to feel like you want to give up, when it's not working, but it's like coming out of that builds, character and growth and like begets that like satisfaction later. So peripheral for Southcourt, and then fitness account for 90s Kids. Still, like, in terms of like meaning, that one I still look back on and I'm just like super proud of it.
I love it, man. Well, I have one final question for you.
Yeah.
Then we'll wrap this up.
Yeah.
Before that, is there anything major, either in the story or big talking points or anything that you're like, man, if I left this podcast and we didn't talk about this thing, like, I'd hate it. Like, is there anything that you feel like we haven't like covered or anything like that?
We've covered a lot. It's just like I think the last thing I would leave people with is just like, never stop creating and never let someone else be the reason that you stop doing what you do, or some like perceived failure be the reason that you stop doing what you do. Like, keep making music as long as you love making music, and keep writing books or acting or doing a podcast or like shooting video as long as you love doing that thing, and don't let numbers or success or somebody else's opinion that you're a tryhard like ever pull that away from you, because you're gonna look back and regret it, and you're leaving something on the table that it could have been beautiful, right? Like this, you're living your life for you, so do your creativity for you, right? Like, be creative for you. And that's like over how many years now? Like, I guess 20 years of making music in some fashion. It's like I've been told no a million times, and I've almost been like, all right, time to sell my guitars and hang it up. But it's like every time you pick it back up, because you gravitate back to it. And if you still have that spark in you, like, keep like chugging at it, because that it will turn into a fire in one way or another. So that's my final message. Just like, keep at it as long as you love it.
Man, you have perfectly been on the segues this entire conversation, because I always end the podcast with the final question of, if you could talk to everybody right now, what would you want them to hear the most? And I feel like we just got that answer. Like, I don't think it can get any better than that. Dude, I cannot thank you enough for making the time out of, making a trip to Columbus. Obviously, you guys have a show, again, at the time of us recording this. You could be doing anything, anywhere, and I'm glad that you were down to come make a podcast with me for a couple hours. And literally, having just gotten back to Columbus, coming straight here and doing a podcast.
Same with you, man. You could be doing anything with anybody, and it's cool that we get to have this conversation and doing something we love,
yes,
right? So
100%, man. This was seriously a blast of a conversation. Like truly, like, absolutely killer conversation. I cannot thank you enough for just sharing your perspectives, being transparent about everything. Like, again, it's easy to sit down on a podcast and be like, yeah, this is cool, that's cool, blah, blah, blah. But like what you don't hear, right? Like, diving into like, no, let's tell the real story. So I appreciate everything that you shared today. Before we do officially wrap up, where can people go find all this music at? I mean, obviously they know the streaming platforms, but is there anything specific that you'd want them to go seek out, or where to find you guys at?
Yeah, we're at Southcourt Music on all socials. Instagram and TikTok primarily are where we do our business. But Spotify, just check out the music, see what you relate to. It's like, I don't often say this, but like, and I didn't with 90s Kids, because there's so many songs and so many eras. But it's like, everything we've put out so far, I'm just stoked, and I'd love to see. I love hearing different people's opinions on like what draws them to Southcourt and what song pulled them in, right? So like, check out the music on Spotify. If we're ever coming through your area, which we're trying to get around the country a little bit more this year, which we're super excited about. Southcourt Music on socials and Southcourt on Spotify. Would love to meet some more people who enjoy the music.
Corey, we made a podcast, dude. Thank you so much, man. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.